Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by Kerryn Sawyer, and we are going to be talking about being different. And we are going to be talking specifically about being different, not being a problem, but being your superpower. So if you've ever felt different from anybody else or everybody else, and you want to start seeing it not as a problem, but as your superpower, stay tuned. We're going to be talking to you. Thank you for joining me and talking about this topic today, Kerryn.
Hi, Barbara. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. I love this topic because for most of my life, I felt different. I felt weird, I felt strange, and there was a long time where I seriously thought there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, that I was damaged, and that I needed to fix myself or change myself in order to be liked or have friends or be accepted or something along those lines. And I'm thinking you might have a similar experience.
Definitely. Well, as you can see, these locks here, they are pretty bright red. I don't know if the camera is really showing it that well, but I grew up a redhead, and in the towns that I grew up in, red hair wasn't that common. I grew up in small towns in New Zealand,
Mhm.
and my my dad was like a budding engineer, and so every few years we were also moving around town. So I was also kind of the new kid at school, the new kid who looked different to everybody else. And I always felt like I didn't really fit in. Everybody had their friend groups, and then there's this little girl who's new, always trying to make friends with the new people. I always felt like I was on the outside. And
Mhm.
then at about age 9, we moved from one very, very small town to a slightly larger small town, which happens to be one of New Zealand's biggest cities, Hamilton. But I started at a very small school there, and by this stage, everyone's about 9. Everyone's got their friend groups established, and I joined at the end of the year as well, so it wasn't even at the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
And I definitely stood out amongst everybody there. I'd also come from a school where my very close friends and I, we always used to compete against each other to be the best at whatever subject in class or even outside of class, whether it was like maths or English or art or even just knuckle bones or elastics on the playing field, things like that. So we always competed against each other to be the best.
Mhm.
And when I got to the school, that competition, that competitive drive was still within me. And I was sort of like segregated again for being a bit of a teacher's pet and, trying to get the teacher's attention. So there was all these ways that I felt like I was being kind of rejected and different from my peers. And I did suffer bullying in my 10th year, um, to the point where I visibly had a lot of grey hair growing, and it's very abnormal for a 10-year-old to start growing grey
Yes.
hair. So, yeah, so I guess I was conditioned from a young age to be different, to stand out. And, like you said, I thought that I saw it as a problem.
Mhm.
I desperately wanted to be different. I desperately wanted to have the blonde hair or the brunette hair. I didn't want to have this white, freckly skin. I wanted to have a natural tan. I wanted to be able to go tanned in the sun in the summer and not red. I wanted to be able to spend time out in the sun by the pool instead of having to, put all the sunscreen on me and then stay in the shade. So yeah, I felt like there was something in me that was not necessarily defective. I didn't necessarily feel like I was broken, but I just didn't want to be different. I wanted to feel like I fitted in. And the real, I guess, the part that irked me a lot was that my brother was born with blonde hair and tanned skin.
I recognize that because I am very light blonde. I'm not red, but light blonde. So also with a light skin, I also desperately wanted to have a tan. I did my best, but either nothing happened or I was lobster red.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there was no tan in between, but my brother has dark hair and an olive skin, and he's brown the minute he smells the sun.
Yeah.
So
I know, I was so cheesed off. So yeah, there was something in me. I just always wanted to be different. I felt like I just didn't fit in. And then there was a bit of bullying on top of it for being different, for being the teacher's pet, for being redhead. I've got all the names: Ginger Nut, Carrot Top, and probably more. They're just two that I remember.
mm,
So it was a challenging youth, but I guess as I grew up, I started to, it wasn't in my youth that I started to be okay with being different. I started to work out how to fit in with other people. I probably started to become a bit of a people pleaser and
mhm,
mold who I really was in order to be liked by other people, which I guess is the other side of not fitting in, when you
yes.
just desperately want to fit in with people. But I did find my crowd. I think what it also made me was a bit more compassionate towards people who really did stand out, who were different. There were, as I was growing up, there were a couple of girls who were intellectually handicapped at our school, intellectually and physically handicapped. So they were not necessarily bullied because people weren't that mean to bully them, but they didn't necessarily have friends.
Mm,
They were sort of separate to other people because they were so different. But I was always the person who was helping them and being kind to them when other people weren't. So I think
mm,
what it did is it gave me a real compassion for people who are different, and I kind of found my crowd of different people, the odd sods. And we formed some very close bonds as we were growing up and sort of supported each other through our differences. Instead of being, the cool in crowd, we were kind of the rebel outer crowd, and we sort of found our okay in being different with I guess by bonding together with people who were slightly different as well.
yes.
Mm.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because even though our origins are different and the way into this feeling is different, we do have a lot of similarities. So I was bullied a lot in school as well, but I was always called fatso or anything related to weight. And because I was so miserable, I did gain weight. I thought I always had been chubby or big, but that's not true. Until I was 8 or 9, I was very slim. So it started when the abuse with my dad started, when I was really starting to feel very unhappy, and when you're also starting to change as a girl, moving more towards young womanhood. And all of that was already very trying, and then being bullied in school and always being the odd one out. When we did ball games, then we needed to pick a team, right? I was always the last one chosen. If they had to work with me, they would comment on it or would try to get out of it, and you were never asked to parties or birthdays of other children. So you're being made to feel very different and unaccepted in your environment. And then because being so fair haired and fair skinned, my mother would never let me out in the sun. I was always required to wear a t-shirt. So then you're the only kid in the swimming pool that's wearing a t-shirt while swimming, and things like that. So you're also standing out, and it continued until high school, where I was also a lot smarter. I still didn't fit in anywhere because on the one hand, I'm highly gifted, so I have a very high IQ. I'm really smart, but I also loved doing looking at beautiful clothes or doing something with my appearance. And I had a boyfriend, so there were roughly two groups at school for us. We had the popular kids that did something with their hair and their appearance and had boyfriends, but were at the bottom of the grade scale. And then we had
Yeah.
the nerdy kids that their whole life was school and they were high grades, but nerdy and not doing anything with their appearance, not having any boyfriends. And I didn't fit in with either crowd because I had the grades, but also the boyfriend.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
So you're always the odd one out. You never really fit in. And then indeed, I think people pleasing is an effect. When people make you feel that you need to change in order to fit in, you start trying to fit in by pleasing those around you.
Yeah, that's so much what I did too. And not necessarily trying to fit in with the cool crowd. I think I determined that the cool crowd weren't my people, even though I'm friends, like, good old Facebook, and we become friends, post school many years later, become friends with them again many years later. But, in school, I wasn't necessarily trying to fit in with them, but I think it did made me just try and modify my behavior in order to try and fit in with people in general. And it's funny what you say about the classes actually, because yeah, there was the cool crowd, and then there was the intellectual crowd, and I was part of the intellectual crowd. So being the competitive one, I was top in the not the top. Emily was the top. Uh, there was there was the kids who were at the top, but they weren't necessarily always the cool kids. So there were a few of them. There were some dotted around, particularly in the art classes, but most of them were in the lower classes. So I didn't even share a lot of classes with these people. But then on the sports field, I was in the top badminton team. I was in the top netball team. And I won a sports award one year too. So that's where I sort of crossed over as well. I won a sports award, and everybody looked at me as if to say,
A
"What?
nerd with a sports
Her?
award. You know?
How?" And that wasn't even the year that I won a national doubles badminton title with my other school friend Kirsten. So that was like a year after we'd won a national title. So yeah, it was like that was my crossover, because being the ugly little redhead at school, no one wanted to date me. So I felt that was another level of like being different. Um, Everybody else seemed to get the boys and get boyfriends and things like that, but not me. Until I was 16 and met the guy that I eventually married and am now divorced from. But he came from out of town, so um, and he was 4 years older than me as well, so he was university, so nothing to do with schooling years. Hadn't seen who I was growing up and where I fit into the social scene, and
Mhm.
he just saw me for me. And I think that's probably the first time that I felt not different, as in like my differences weren't a problem. I felt accepted
Yes.
because I was accepted for me, and not where I fit into this whole social scene or the social situation within school. Everyone's got their rankings and who's popular and who's not. Well, to him, I was someone who was interesting, and he liked me for me. So
That's
first
all.
time feeling actually accepted.
That's what
Yeah.
it's all about, right? Because I didn't try to fit in with the cool crowd. I just tried to be accepted by someone. I didn't care who. I wanted someone to be my friend, someone that I could talk to. And in these stages, what we are talking about, being different, we perceived it as a problem. It was causing problems for us. So it's very natural that a lot of people think that when you are different, that is a problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because as human beings, we are programmed to want to fit in, because fitting in with our tribe, being same as our tribe, equals safety, equals comfort, equals security,
Yes.
equals good for our survival. Being different, being segregated from our tribe, equals to the most primitive part of our mind, equals certain death.
Yes.
That's why we fear it. Yeah, it's something to be really feared. Um, and yeah, and I think just like you were saying before, I think the reason why I ended up, being in a marriage that was probably not ideal was with somebody. It was because from, if we look at it from a being different and being accepted point of view, he was probably the first guy who I felt accepted by.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was leading me to probably not look at things objectively and really assess whether he was the right guy for me. Would I do it all again? Probably, because it's led me to where I am now. I'm very philosophical about those sorts of things. But I know I modified my behaviour a lot, even just to fit in with him. over the
I
years.
recognize what you're saying. When I met my first boyfriend, it was like, oh, finally someone who accepts me, finally someone who loves me. And he also tried to defend me when my dad was doing his thing. So it felt like my champion, right? My guy. But still, because you don't want to lose that, I was still trying to please him in the sense that he would stick around, that I could keep him.
Yeah, same. Yeah, even when it was clear that things were not right and there were red flags and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, so I think that was a product or result of this feeling of not fitting in somewhere and just trying to really fit in with somebody who I thought was accepting of me. Yeah, who
Exactly.
obviously really wasn't in the end. Yeah.
So how then did we move from being different being a problem to where we are now? Being different is our superpower. Where did that start for you, and what key moments could you see along the way?
Um, Well, I do remember one particular moment, but I think as we grow up, as we get older, I think we start to naturally care a little less and less what other people think and really start to embrace who we are. And because we've been with ourselves for long enough now, we start to really understand ourselves and get to know ourselves instead of rejecting ourselves. So I think there was a natural bit of that going on for me. I think it was 30, I was 33 when my marriage split up,
Mhm.
and I think it was at that point I really started to get to know me, and I know that I'd had a pretty I guess, shitty conversation with myself in my head about myself most of my life, and certainly through my 20s when I was really struggling with my weight because I was miserable in marriage. And so, a lot of my self conversation was, beating myself up. I hated the way I looked, all those sorts of things. Once again, going back to the I want to change how I look, my appearance, so that I fit in with other people, sort of thing. But at age 33, it was a real opportunity for me to discover who I was, and because I hadn't been on my own as an adult ever. I
Yeah,
met him at 16. I was now 33. We'd been together that whole time,
yeah.
and I think during that process, it was a real awakening for me to learn how to stand on myself on my own as an adult.
Mhm.
And I remember walking down the street one day, and I was so in my head, worried. I'm in a new country, by the way. We'd just moved from New Zealand to Australia. I didn't really know anyone here, so we've not only just broken up, but I don't really even know anybody. I've got no friends. I remember walking down the street one day, just being so miserable in my head, worried about what everyone else is thinking about me. Because all I see are these pretty blonde Australians everywhere.
Further,
All
yeah.
that conversation going on in here again. And I just remember at one point, I just walked past somebody in the street, um, and she just flashed the biggest smile at me. And I just went, that felt good. And it kind of snapped me. And I thought, wow, wasn't that lovely? And I just thought, oh, wow, if somebody can actually lift me out of my head and put a smile on my face just with a smile, let's see if I can do it to other people. And I started just trying to do that to other people. And I saw other people who were walking down the streets miserable and in their heads, and I flashed a smile, and I just saw their reaction change as well. And then I started to learn. I think last time we spoke, you corrected me here. But what I thought I learned at the time was that everybody as well feels different in some way. You said it's only about 20% of people, but anyway, somebody told me that everybody feels different, and that really hit home for me. And not only that people feel different, most people feel different, but everyone's in their head worried about what other people think of them. And it really hit home for me because that's exactly what I'd spent my whole life doing.
Mhm.
And as I started to get out of my head and actually look around at other people who were, walking down the street, miserable in their heads, trying to hide from the world, it just made me realize that, oh my goodness, why are we all doing this? Why are we all so concerned about what everyone else thinks about us when nobody's thinking about us? We're all in our own heads, worried about our own lives, worried about ourselves, worried about how we fit in with the world, worried about what everyone else thinks about us. And I think that was the moment. I don't even know exactly when it was, but I was probably 33, 34, 35, something like that. I think that was really the moment for me that snapped me out of my head and started to get me to stop caring about how I fit in. Stop
Mhm.
caring about what other people thought about me because they're worried about what I think of them. And I also started to realize that the people that I was like just drawn to, like, I remember I had no friends and I was trying to find out, like, how do I make friends? I had never been
Right.
very good at making friends my whole life. I always had one or two. Um, and so I thought, how do I make friends? Who is it that I'm drawn to? And what is it about those people that makes me want to talk to them? And I realized those people are the people who ask me about me. They open me up by asking me questions about me. And even though that sounds very selfish, right, and very self absorbed, I realized, I like them because they're not talking about themselves, they're actually engaging me, they're drawing me into a conversation. And then because they do that, I ask them back about them and they open up, and that creates a conversation between the two of us. And so I started approaching conversations with people like that as well. It's not about, oh, do you like me? Do I fit in with you? Do I please you? It's about, who are you? What makes you unique in the world? What's your experience of life?
Yes.
And, helping people talk about themselves in a way that feels safe to them and allows them to be who they are as well.
Mhm.
I found that so powerful.
It is.
And that's kind of, it was such a learning experience for me.
Mhm.
And it's something that I have really embraced in my life, I guess, from here on in. And that's probably been, I don't know, I'd say maybe 15 years. I mean, there's been a bit of perfection of that, like perfection of the technique, I guess, um, as I've gone through life. But I was a shy kid growing up because I always felt different. I didn't know how to speak to people. I didn't know really how to make friends very well. And now, I'll turn up to a party not really knowing many people and sit down and have a chat to someone and
Mhm.
make a friend. So I find it so much easier these days. And that's why I say being different isn't a problem. It can be our superpower. In
Yes.
that if we don't make being different a problem to ourselves, it can help us open somebody else up. And then we
Yes.
get to be really who we are. We get to be who we are because we're not rejecting ourselves for who we are.
Yes,
Uh,
you're absolutely right. And thank you for sharing this story. I think a lot of people will recognize themselves in it. But you started with saying, well, when you grow, when you learn, when more about yourself, you start to care less about what other people think. And that's only for a select few people, because there are lots and lots of people who never think about themselves, who never think that they are weird, who are just themselves, are just living them lives, are full of self-confidence, and never have any types of ideas in this direction, who will also not learn and grow and start to accept themselves because they have never seen anything wrong with themselves. They're so sometimes full of themselves, or sometimes so confident within their own skin that they don't have any of these things. So they will definitely not resonate with what we are talking about today. And the 20% that you're referring to, that is what I said. It's the people that have always felt different. The people that have always felt different is 20% of the population. And the rest of the population doesn't even think about it, doesn't even stand still with the fact that they might be different. It never even crosses their mind. It's not even a distant possibility. But the people who are feeling different, they eventually all move towards a path of self-discovery, because there is no other way. When you feel different from everybody else, that is no way to live, that is no way to function. So you need to move along the path of self-discovery, of self-acceptance, of self-love and self-confidence, where in the end, indeed, you think, well, if that is your opinion, I'm okay, that's your right to have this opinion. My opinion is different, even when it concerns myself. And then you've stepped into that power where you are no longer worried about what they think, because you're so secure in what you think about yourself, about the world, and the way you view things, that you're no longer shaken by these people out of your belief. That doesn't mean that you are not open to feedback, that you're not listening to feedback, and that you won't think about what they said. And if they have a valid point, then you might adjust something in your perspective or your thinking or something. But we need to move along this journey of feeling different and seeing that as a problem, towards embracing our uniqueness, which is what makes us different, so that we can step into this world and live in this world and be successful in this world in a way that is not negative or impactful in a negative way on us, but instead beneficial and effortless and wonderful and beautiful. And in that sense, embracing your uniqueness, embracing the things that make you different, that is your superpower, because all of those things that make you different is what nobody else has, especially not in the combination that you have it, that makes you unique, that makes you wonderful, that makes you beautiful, and that makes you very, very powerful. But it is
Yeah.
a journey.
Absolutely. I was almost kind of reflecting as you were talking there, saying I feel like our youth is our training ground for teaching us how to be different,
Yes.
teaching us how to be start to become comfortable with being different, because we're meant to be change makers in this world.
Mm.
Um, it's like a if we hadn't have had that experience of being different and going on that journey of self-discovery and starting to be okay with our differences, we wouldn't then be in a place to go out and start to transform this world, start to
Definitely.
be change makers in this world. And I think of where I am now, at least with what I'm doing. Being different allowed me to have the confidence to step outside of a corporate environment where I felt very different, like I didn't fit in.
Same.
But I had the bravery to step outside of a corporate environment, um, and move into my own entrepreneur world,
Mm.
uh, and being plant-based, being a plant-based coach. The world is not plant-based, so that again makes me different. Wanting to help people on their plant-based journey, help them become successful at it, achieve their weight loss goals at it, and helping them be okay with leaving like a traditional world of food and stepping into being different and seeing that as their superpower as well. Because I'm always saying to my clients, and I've coached probably 3 of them this week, on being different in this world of food and how they can be different amongst their peers, amongst their family, and see that as their superpower, because they can see where everybody else is headed with regards to their health and they're going to fall off a cliff. Whereas we need to head the different direction, because we don't want to be heading off that cliff.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I feel like that our youth and everything that we went through in terms of being different was like that training ground for the life that we are eventually meant to be leading, where we will be different and we do need to be okay with standing out, and we will be successful if we are okay with standing out and being different.
Yes. But what I've discovered is that that also is greatly dependent on your blueprint, the life that's designed for you. And I don't know your design, but my design, I am a 6 line. So that means that I'm a role model teacher. That means that I had to go through all of the things I went through in order to embody the teachings and to find my own way through it, so that I can then guide and help other people. And being different is the thing that makes me so good at what it
Yes.
is that I'm doing. And all my quirkiness and all my talents come together in a beautiful way within my business that allows me to do everything that I'm doing and have the success that I am having. But uh, that's not for everybody. So it's really dependent on your blueprint, on your design, what's meant for you. Sometimes it's just meant for you to learn different types of lessons, maybe not step into the role model or the teacher form, but it could be that you need to inspire someone, or that you need to come up with a creative solution for the plastic pollution in the ocean, or you use your talents in a different way. But another factor that plays a big part in why it's so difficult to embrace our differences, our being different, our uniqueness, is that for the longest time, especially here in Europe, at least, I don't know how it is in New Zealand or even Australia, but here in Europe, people were being prosecuted for being different in the Second World War. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
were Jewish or different than everybody else, you were locked up and you were judged and you were put in concentration camps. So when I found out that I am a highly sensitive person, I went to my mother and I said, I finally figured out what's wrong with me, because I still thought there was something wrong with me at that time. And I said, I'm a highly sensitive person. And her response was, yes, child, I know I am one too, but it's not something to be proud of. And I thought, why not? Right? I didn't understand. And it came from my grandmother. My grandmother had actively lived the war, had seen what it meant to be different, had seen how difficult life is, the consequences of being different. So my grandmother taught my mother to be just like everybody else, because there's safety in numbers. And when you don't stick your head above the cornfield, life is easier for you,
Yeah.
and you will have less problems and you will run into less difficult situations. And she genuinely believed this. So that's how she raised my mother. And that's why my mother tried to raise me also as being like everybody else, instead
Yeah.
of embracing the things that make me unique, from a
Yeah.
point of truly believing that that was in my best interest.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing how those messages are handed down through the generations. It's a little bit like the message of, your life is supposed to be find a nice man, get settled down, get married, have a few kids, have the house, have the dog, have the cars, have the nice job that you stay in for 30 years until you retire and then die.
Yeah,
Like that life is no longer, but neither is passing down some of those messages that are no longer true. Like
definitely.
you need to be the same as everybody else to fit in and be safe. In fact, I feel like today, if we are just trying to be the same as everybody else, it's not necessarily safe.
No.
uh, it's assuming that everybody else has it right, and I think we really need to be open to unique thought. We need to be open to unique ways in unique perspectives. We all have a different perspective of life. We've all grown up with no two people have exactly the same experience in life, and not even twins. So we need to embrace everybody's different perspective in life. I've just been coaching one client who had a very different upbringing in her family than her sister. Something
Mhm,
happened to her, and her sister doesn't believe her. And
mhm,
so they've got this conflict, and
mhm.
they just can't, each one wants the other to see their point of view, but they're not accepting that each one has a different point of view. And
Yes.
so I think it's kind of, sad that they can't embrace each other's differences and just accept them, and see that as, just part of who that person is.
Mhm.
And so, we need to appreciate that everybody has a different viewpoint, everybody has a different way of seeing the world. Is any of it right? Is any of it wrong? No.
I don't think
Like
there is a right and a wrong, but
it's
and
not.
that's also not one truth. There is a truth, and it's all in the eye of the beholder. And
Mm.
we need to figure out for ourselves what is our truth. And
Yeah.
in order to do that, we need to let go of societal expectations, societal beliefs. I call them the rules, the bullshit rules of life, the things that have
Yeah.
been handed down from generation as the way things are supposed to be, or supposed to be done, or supposed to be seen. It might be true for whoever thought of it first, but you need to determine for yourself if it's true for you. And
Yeah.
that means embracing your difference, embracing your uniqueness, leaving the herd, stepping into your individualism, and
Yeah.
embracing it and loving it and being proud of it. And for a lot of people, this is still very difficult. And sometimes it's not easy to do by yourself. And sometimes you just need some guidance. Because if you don't embrace what makes you unique, and you were looking for a plant-based coach, and I was a plant-based coach, and Kerryn is a plant-based coach, and Sarah and Hank and Alfred, and there are 20 plant-based coaches, and we are all the same. How would you choose?
Yeah.
Who would
Right.
you choose?
Yeah, exactly.
What
And
ground
yeah,
would you choose?
and this is one thing I was actually thinking before we even jumped on our call as well. Like in this world of entrepreneurship, we are encouraged to find our uniqueness because there's probably, I don't know, hundreds of people out there doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
where does our message and what makes us different from somebody else? So that's where embracing our difference as well. And because, there's not just hundreds, there's thousands of people around the world, hundreds of thousands of people around the world who need help in their life, and they can't all just go to one person, right? They're not just going to. So each different person with a unique perspective is going to come to somebody because they resonate with their voice, and their
Mhm.
voice is different to somebody else, how somebody else speaks about something. So yeah,
Exactly.
you're right. It's we all need to find our uniqueness and embrace our uniqueness. It's not a problem.
No,
It is the very thing that makes us us. We are the only us who will ever be
it's the thing that
born.
makes you you.
Yeah, we have unique gifts and talents to bring to the world. We have a unique perspective.
Yes.
It's how we see the world, and not everybody has to agree with us, and that's okay too.
We
I
all
think.
have our role to play in this world, and when we don't accept who we are and embrace our differentness, our uniqueness, and start to embody that, and bring it out into the light so that other people can recognize themselves in it, or recognize that we might be their tribe or they might be our tribe, then nothing ever will be resolved. We need to embrace who we are in order to find our tribe, in order to find those friends that will always be there for you, that will think the same way, that will act the same way, that can be your true friend. And they will only recognize you when you are your true authentic self. And that's also why I don't believe in competition, because even if you and me were doing the exact same thing, I have my background story, you have your background story, I grew up in the Netherlands, you grew up in New Zealand, we have vastly different parents with vastly different jobs in vastly different countries with vastly different beliefs, and that colors our experiences, our beliefs, it colors
Yeah.
everything. And that's what makes us unique, even though what we might be doing, the end result for people might be similar.
Yeah, exactly. And the people that you attract, if you were doing the same thing, would be vastly different to who I would attract because of my message versus your message. Yeah. So yeah, it's 100%. Yeah, like I absolutely love this. I've got one client at the moment who is really struggling with being different to her family.
Mhm.
Um, and she's always felt different, and it was always made a problem as a child, and by her mother, that is. So I think if it's your peers, it's one thing, but when it's a message coming from your
Parents,
mother,
yeah.
it's even harder. And so now as she's trying to make changes to her diet, she's like terrified of telling people. She's terrified of this, I
Being
guess.
odd, being a
Yeah, like,
problem with dinner parties, or not
yeah,
going to a restaurant, or needing special things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, or going around to their place. Like she didn't want to go to Thanksgiving. She's in the US. She doesn't want to go to Christmas, and so we're working together on helping her just really accept who she is and let go of what anybody else thinks of her. And when she can truly embrace who she is and be accepting of who she is, then she will find the right people. She will attract the right people to
Exactly.
her, and the people around her will not care. It's when you go into a situation and you desperately need everybody else's approval that people don't approve of you. If I think about, I'm not the only, like in my very close peer group, there's only two others of us who are plant based. And I was the first. One's done it for heart reasons. The other one, she's kind of like semi. She's adds a little bit of cheese every now and then, so she's not fully. But within our peer group, at one point I was the only one, and it is now increasing. Oh, actually, now there's a third. He had a heart attack, so he's gone plant based as well. But it's increasing. But being okay with being different in amongst my peer group, but my peer group are amazing. They're not the type of people to reject someone because of what they eat, but
Mhm.
also because I was just solid in myself and I didn't care what anybody else thought. It's just who I am, what I eat. I
But that,
don't, I'm not approaching it with an air of you need to accept me, because I think if that's the air that you approach something, then it's not a confident energy to be in, and it's a sort of energy that pushes people away. Something feels off. So it's not that you're different that people are not accepting, it's that you're not standing in your true power that people are not accepting. So when you stand completely confident in who you are, no matter who you are, people embrace that, people love that, and people are drawn to you more, because you are
or,
being you. You are so totally accepting of you, and the um, it gives them the approval to be who they are too.
mhm.
Um, and I think that's one thing that we need to do. We need to all embrace being ourselves
Yes.
and give other people the permission to be themselves as well.
Yeah, you
Um,
hit upon the core of the whole issue, right? Because it's only a problem being different when you see it as a problem. When you are tapping into fear, there are basically two types of responses that people can have. And one is fear based and one is love based. So when you are fear based, you worry. You worry about what people think, you worry about what people say, you will worry about how you come across, you will worry about the ramifications, you will worry about problems, you will worry about everything, you will worry. You come
yeah,
from a place of fear. While when you stand in who you are and accept who you are and embrace who you are and come from a place of love where you love yourself completely and not anything about yourself, not the way you look, not the way you eat, not the way you act, not the way you do, nothing is a problem for you, then other people will also not see it as a problem. And there might be
yes,
exceptions. There might be some people who see you as a problem, but that is their right. And somebody once told me, and I think this is a brilliant thing, what other people think about me is none of my business.
mm-hmm.
And that's
And
that's it, right? Because if there are people out there that won't accept you, then that is their business. As long as you are completely accepting, loving, and embracing of yourself, then who
yes,
cares?
that's exactly right, right? We don't need other people's approval, we need our own approval. The only reason that we're seeking other people's approval is because we don't approve of ourselves.
Yes, because we are insecure, because we are not feeling confident, because we believe we are weird or strange or different or that there's something wrong, because we
Yeah.
need that outside approval to dissuade that. While the answers are on the inside, you need the inside approval, and then the outside will follow.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that really clicked for me. When I was seeking approval from my peers, and I found, somebody, my ex-husband, who approved of me, so I clung to that.
Yes.
And then when we separated, when we split up, that was now me needing to go in and approve of me first, and that's what really shifted everything for me in terms of my confidence, in terms of who I became. I'm not the same person I was 30 years ago, for sure.
No, me neither. And that's the beauty of this journey, where you're going from being different and seeing it as a problem to being different and seeing it as your superpower, not wanting to change one thing about yourself, fully embracing everything. And that's the beauty of this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say people are going to see you the way you see yourself. Somebody told me that once. So, how do you want people to see you? And if you want people to see you as fearful, somebody who doesn't like themselves, you're training them to see you in exactly the same way. So, shift everything internally, and everything externally will start to shift for you too.
Exactly. Beautiful. Oh, I've been really loving this conversation, and I can imagine that you, viewer, listener, are also loving this conversation. So I would like to ask you a couple of things. If
Sure.
you do like this episode, then I would love it if you could like it, if you could share it with your audience, and I would love it even more if you could share your biggest insight out of the conversation I've been having with Kerryn here today, and would put it in the comments, because I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you thought was your biggest aha moment, or your biggest eye opener, or the thing that really surprised you, maybe. So if you could put that in the comments, that would be perfect. But I can also imagine that you want to know, how can I reach Kerryn? I want to talk with her. I want to know more about that plant-based stuff. So where can people find you, Kerryn?
Okay, I'm on most, I'm going to say most social media networks as the Plant Power Coach. You've got to have the. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on YouTube. And yeah, just make sure on Instagram at least you put in the
I'll
because there
make
is a
sure your links are in the show notes. So don't worry,
yes.
the links will be
Okay.
in the show notes.
Beautiful. You can also reach out to me on my private Facebook account, Kerryn Sawyer, to send me a friend request. I've got lots of people there. Or come and join my Facebook group, which is called Plant Based Weight Loss Support. I think there's also a link in there as well. And I've got a few guides I think I've sent you as well. My weight loss guide, plant-based weight loss guide, and my plant-based, what would you call it, lifestyle guide, how to embrace a plant-based lifestyle and do it with ease. So certainly come and follow me on any of those channels, and I'd love to connect if being plant-based or achieving weight loss the plant-based way is something that you are wanting to pursue as well.
I love it. And like I said, I will make sure that everything that Kerryn just mentioned, all the links and the names of her group and such, will be in the show notes, so that you have no trouble finding her group, or connecting with her in any way. My stuff will, of course, also be in there. And you're always welcome to book a free virtual coffee with me if you want to explore your differentness and how you can see it as your superpower as well. So for today, I thank you, Kerryn, for being here, for talking about this so important topic and having this wonderful conversation. And I'm also thanking all of you for being my loyal supporters, for viewing, for watching, for commenting, for liking, for sharing. And I hope to see you all again next week with my next guest.
Thank you for having me today, Barbara. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kerryn. Bye,
Bye.
everybody. Have a great day.